I'd like to introduce you to Tiffany Bailey. She owns Lush Boudoir Photography. And I'm so excited to interview you today because we also work together selling electric cosmetics.
Yes, we do. Indeed.
So, as you know, the channel is about mental health connection to artistic expression. Is there anything else you do besides photography that's artistic?
I do like to paint. I'm not necessarily the best painter, but I enjoy doing it. So that's the fun part. And I really like any kind of creative outlet. I like taking pictures because it gets me to kind of get out of my head for a minute and focus on art instead, and focus on making something beautiful and not dark,
Right.
Well, unless that's what I'm going for that day, but
Yeah, it's dark.
Sometimes it's dark. Sometimes it's dark. But it's art nonetheless. It's positive always.
Right, definitely. I can feel that. So, what I love about your photography is that I see a lot of body types.
Yes.
There is never just when I think, oh, she's prone to shooting this body type. No, the totally opposite. And all skin colors too.
Yes.
And so what it makes me feel is a sisterhood
to
the photography. Oh man, we're all women and we're all strong and beautiful. And
yes.
I just love it.
Yes.
Was that originally your vision?
Yeah, my vision was I started Lush in 2011. Okay. And I had started out shooting bands, band photography and things like that. And then I kind of realized that a lot of band boys suck and I didn't really want to shoot them anymore. And I would rather shoot women who are awesome and support each other. So that's kind of how I started it. Was I wanted to create something where all body types were represented, because a lot of times I see boudoir photographers or photographers in general who focus on only a certain type of body, and that's easy to shoot.
Yeah.
But especially with professional models, it's very easy to shoot someone who already knows their angles and knows 1, 2, 3, 4. This is how it's going. Right. But when you're shooting with someone who is more insecure, who maybe has never done a photo shoot, or who just doesn't feel that confident about themselves and doesn't know how to position their body, that's who I kind of wanted to start out focusing on, was people who were unsure and wanted to look beautiful in photos but didn't really know how to do that. Because I don't see a lot of photographers out there reaching out to those kind of people. I see, the same kinds of body types and the same skin colors over and over and over again on some certain particular, photographers' websites. But I didn't want to do that. I wanted to represent everybody. I'm from New Orleans, so everybody here is it's just diverse. I've never thought in one way, so it's just kind of representative in my photos also when you see that in your everyday.
I was just talking with someone last night and we were saying, well, they say America is a melting pot, but I really feel like New Orleans is a melting pot for sure.
Definitely. New Orleans is a very unique city. There isn't another city like it, and it's a melding pot of all different kinds of people, and I wanted my photos to be representative of that. And I do hold it down for my bigger girls too, because I'm like, a lot of times we don't get the shoots that, maybe thinner models get. And so I wanted to focus on people who may not get that representation often.
Yeah. And I did notice that about yours, and I appreciated that because I've had a lot of weight fluctuations in my life, and there were times that I was irritated with how my body changed, or when I gain weight and people would say, oh, you have a great face,
right?
And
I got that a lot growing up, was oh, you could be a model, and because of but only they would be like, oh, you have such a pretty face, you have such pretty eyes, you could be a model. But there was always that but you're 5'2" and you're 200 pounds, you know what I mean? So it's you're never gonna, they know in the back of their mind, they're like, well, let's not gas her up too much. She can't really be a model. And that's what I'm like, that's dumb, because I am, I do rock a photo shoot now. So it's I wanted everybody to have that. I wanted everybody to feel that. And now, the photos have evolved and have gotten bigger in the burlesque community and bigger with sex workers and things like that, because they're also underappreciated and underrepresented.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because there are people who, only want to shoot, like I said, a professional model, somebody who already knows what they're doing and is shot with everybody and, you know, is easy to shoot. But it's not all, I want the people who don't necessarily get that often.
Yeah.
You know.
But in none of your photographs have I seen do the models look like they don't know what they're doing.
Well, and that
must be your magic.
that's what I'm hoping is my magic. That's what I try to. I have a certain picture in my head of what's flattering and what really captures that person's essence, and not just like what they look like, but how they feel, what they feel like to me. If they're happy and they're a fun person to shoot, I always want to get a photo of them laughing, or even if they're not normally somebody who smiles in a photo, I always try to get them to get at least one good laughing photo where we're both where we're laughing about something and they don't know I'm taking the picture, because I want them to remember that they were happy at that shoot, you know, and that they had fun and that it was a good time. And I also want them to be able to look back at the photos, and even if you don't necessarily, and you said you've had a lot of weight fluctuation. I mean, I've also had a lot of weight fluctuation in my life. And even if you're not necessarily happy with your body right now, I want you to be able to do a photo shoot and say, I like how I look regardless. You know what I mean? Like, I want people to be able to do the photos and say, I may want to change this in the future, but I love myself regardless, you know? And I've had a client who has gone through plastic surgery for certain things about her body that she didn't like, but she has gotten photo shoots along the way every single time, because she wants to be able to show that she has loved her body, even when it's not necessarily what she wanted. She loved it regardless. And I love that. I think that's great. Everybody should be able to have the mentality of, I love myself, even though there may be things, I'm not perfect. I don't look exactly how I want to look, but who does, you know?
Everybody wants what they don't have.
Oh, the grass is always greener. Also, very, very much so.
I know I've always wanted curly hair, like the really, really curly. And then every time I say that to somebody with curly hair, they're like,
pump the brakes. Yeah,
right,
no, yeah,
like,
definitely.
No, then you have to deal with it.
Yeah, no, that's exactly it. It's everybody always wants what they can't have, and so yeah.
So when I just present the idea of mental health and how it connects to artistic expression, what do you automatically think of for yourself?
Well, it's funny because when you said that, I didn't think about myself. Actually, my first thought was of the people that I'm shooting, and a lot of the people that I shoot have some kind of mental illness, whether it be anxiety or depression, or any myriad of things, bipolar disorder, and a lot of times that can block getting a good photo shoot, because you start out and you're anxious, and if the photographer doesn't make you feel comfortable, it's going to show in the photos. You're going to show that you're anxious or upset. And I always strive to make everybody comfortable and make everybody, happy during the shoot, so that it's not, it doesn't show in their face. A good model's, not going to show it regardless of how they're feeling. But, or, a professional model per se, somebody who does it for a living, but most of the people I'm shooting are not professional models. They're people who have never done a shoot, or people who have done, even if they've done 10 shoots, it's still something that if you're not comfortable, it's going to show. And so those things, looking at photos of yourself and realizing that, wow, that's me. Like, I look like that, can be so good for your mental health, because you can look at it and say, like, wow, that's me. I'm actually happy that that's me. As far as me, I suffer with generalized anxiety disorder, depression. I mean, it seems like everyone has these things. I've been suffering with it since I was 15. And I've been off and on medications, not on any presently, which is good. But because I'm trying to do a more natural approach, and I know that's not for everyone. Of course, definitely. If you need the medication, take the medication by all means. Right. I'm definitely not saying don't do that, but for me personally, I've started a more natural thing. So I try to harness all of that whenever I start to get anxious and I'm worrying about, like, what am I going to do tomorrow? How am I going to do this, or what's going to happen? And I just have to plan, and I start thinking about what art I'm going to create. Okay, the next shoot I'm doing, who's going to be the makeup artist on it? Okay, well, what kind of look are we going for? What location are we looking for? I need to go scout locations. I need to, think about how I want these photos to look and what the feel is going to be. And I start thinking and almost obsessing over that. So that way, when those bad thoughts come in, I can just say, no, I'm doing something positive. Go away. I'm doing this. Please stop. I know you're there, but it's okay. I'm just going to keep focusing on my art. And I mean, I hope that's I hope that it continues to be that way, because that's really how I've managed to just kind of fight all that off and all those negative things. Is just be like, I can do this, and focusing on what the shoot's going to look like.
That reminds me of when I was in college, and I didn't go to school for photography, but it was film at that time.
Yeah,
and it was just starting to change to the digital, and but
the original digital cameras were not.
Oh,
they were terrible. Also, like nobody wanted to switch to digital because it was. Yeah. I mean, some people did, but most people were like,
you couldn't get the big giant.
And I still like film. It's just expensive. You know what I mean? Film is just expensive to shoot that much at that volume and have everything printed, and especially because a lot of times my clients will need things out on a timely basis, so having to go get it developed and things like that. It's just so much quicker with digital. But I do have a love affair with film, of course. Film is. There's just a thing about it that you can't, and that goes with movies as well, cinema. And I feel like there's just a certain quality to film that you just can't attain on digitals. Many filters and things, grain effect that you put on it, it's just not quite the same.
It's nice to get your hands-on approach to like developing the film too sometimes.
Right.
And, developing each individual print in a bath. But the thing I learned in that photography class was I was going through a difficult time with that husband at the time. And we had an art project to create a book, and we had to have a theme or whatever. And my book didn't turn out the way that I really wanted it to, because I was distracted by interpersonal relationships.
Yeah.
And my teacher pointed that out, and he was like, if you focus more on your talent, then it'll carry you through anything.
Through that. Yeah. And that's so true. You really just have to use that energy towards doing something else, channel it into something else.
Yeah.
Because if not, it's going to trip you up every time.
Absolutely. And some people don't realize that. But then again, some people really can't do that. I'm grateful that, that I have learned that.
Yeah, you can just immerse yourself in it. And it's definitely something that's learned. It's not something that just happened. I was like, oh, I'm able to do that. Right. It definitely has happened over time, and just realizing what works best for me and really channeling that negative into something positive is the only thing that's going to get me through a day to day. And I know that now.
Were there things growing up that you feel influenced what you do now?
Well, my mom was into photography. Okay. And she would take pictures of me. She took my senior portraits, and she was always taking pictures my entire life growing up. She has huge Tupperware containers of just pictures upon pictures of me growing up. And I used to think, gosh, she takes so many pictures as a teenager, like, oh, mom, But now I'm grateful for that.
Split at birth, maybe.
Oh, yeah. And then as I got older, it started to be something that I was interested in. Like I said, I started doing pictures of bands. I was always really into music. And so I was going to shows a lot as a teenager and as a young person. So I was taking live photography, and I do love live music. That's a huge part of me. But it got to be too much, especially because, personal things and, too much drama involved. So I just was like, all right, let me focus on something else. And I started doing more portraits after band stuff. And I was like, okay, I'm going to do family portraits and things like that. And then I'll still do family portraits, but it didn't click with me. It didn't feel like something that I was elated doing. You know what I mean? I'm okay with it, but it's not something I felt when I did my first boudoir shoot. it clicked, like something clicked.
Nice.
And I was just like, this is what I'm supposed to be doing. This is it. And I just ran with it. And that was kind of how it started. It started because I was working at a physical therapy company, and a coworker, one of the physical therapists, wanted to do a boudoir shoot for her husband, but she was looking around and she didn't see anybody nearby that she liked the work, and she'd seen me do work before, but not boudoir stuff. But she said, look, I feel comfortable with you. I feel like you'd be able to do something good with it. Do you want to do it? And I was like, hell yeah, let's do it. So we did it, and we both had so much fun. And I was just like, this is what I'm supposed to be doing. Like, this is it. That was the epiphany moment of like, this is it. This is what I'm supposed to be doing. And so I started Lush, and I quit that job soon after, quit a 9-to-5, because I was like, I don't ever want to do a 9-to-5 ever again.
I can relate.
I don't want to do it. It's not good for me. I would much rather make my own schedule, or, have more flexibility than just, you have to go in every day or else bad things happen. I don't like that.
Yeah, there's that stress that you're
it's
told,
the pressure
yeah.
of, it's just, I can't take that. So I also felt very trapped at 9-to-5 jobs. I had one where I worked at a security company, and I was a front desk person. I felt trapped at that place. And I was actually reading old statuses on Facebook recently, and one of them said something like, Tiffany Bailey is, that was back when it still said your name and then is on Facebook. Like you had an is prompt. That was all you could. It wasn't just like what's on your mind. It was like you are doing something.
Yes, I remember.
So it was like Tiffany Bailey is, and it was like stapling papers together in an office, wondering what I'm doing with my life or something like that. And I remember that day vividly, of just like, I had a stack of papers that my job was to staple them together, and I was doing it. And I had this like moment of just like, is this really what I want to be doing with my life? Like, is this actually leading to something? Like, am I going to move up? Am I going to stay here forever?
Yeah.
Why am I doing this? I could be doing so many other things. And, that was when I kind of started to push photography more. And then it wasn't until 2011 that I was like, all right, I'm doing Lush, and that's going to be my thing.
How long of a period do you think it was to like really come to that, all right, this is it, that's what I'm doing?
Between when I started taking photos and like
just when you were like, I'm stapling shit together.
It was a good like 3 years after that.
Okay.
So it was a while after that before I really like made that a thing. Not just like realized it, but like did something about it.
Right.
I realized it, but sometimes when you're comfortable in something, especially if you have anxiety and depression, like you don't even care if it's bad because it's comfortable. You're like, shit's bad, but I'm comfortable doing it.
Yeah,
it's comfortable in the bad.
Shit.
I don't want it to be bad, but also like it could be worse, because what if something new is even worse? You know? And so you stay with something, whether that be a relationship, a job, whatever it is, you stay in it because it's comfortable and not because it makes you happy anymore. And that was kind of a metaphor for my life at that time also. So once I kind of shed that stuff and moved on to become the new Pokemon version of me, the evolution.
You leveled up.
I leveled up. I evolved. And then it was a while before I really like made that decision to do that with my life. But yeah, it's been a wild ride.
I'm sure. And what I like about doing things like that is, well, first of all, you didn't do it originally for yourself. You didn't think about yourself in mental health, except that I can't do this and I want to do that.
Right.
It sounds like.
Right.
So what's cool about that is when you are thinking about others and doing things for others, it just feeds back naturally, even when you don't even ask for credit for it.
Right. You're right.
It helps
you're right.
Your self-esteem, and you're like, holy shit, I'm a good person.
Right. Right.
I do have some good redeeming qualities.
Right. And
the shit I tell myself.
And now that it's gotten, my photography's gotten better. I mean, that's the only way I can put it, because I strive to do. I thank you. I strive to do. I mean, I look back at stuff from 2011 versus now, and I'm like, wow. I have grown as a photographer.
Yeah.
And I mean, I feel like that's what you should be doing. I strive every single shoot to do better than the last shoot. Like, I'm like, okay, what can I do to make this even better? Like, what can I do this time that I didn't do last time to make this better? And I've really been focusing on that lately. Like, okay, the next thing I do is going to be the best thing, like I want each thing to keep people interested and keep everyone watching. And, I want it to become bigger, and I want to shoot for bigger things. I want to shoot for nylon and paper mag, and, I want to do those things. Those are all things
Listen up.
I'm a freelance photographer available for hire. Decent rates. Lush Boudoir LA at gmail.com.
I love it.
But no, I really do. Those are things that are goals of mine that I'm like, okay, I do want to do these things eventually. And I've gotten to travel over the past couple of years with doing this. That's been something that I hadn't even really imagined when I started this. I didn't really think like, oh, I could travel. It just wasn't a thing. And then I met a friend of mine, Maureen, who goes to a burlesque school in Chicago.
Okay.
And she met me in New Orleans when I was selling tours. I was selling like swamp tours, city tours, ghost tours, that kind of thing. I did that for like 5 years. And she met me on the job and said, she was walking past me at the tour shop. She stopped dead in her tracks, looked over at me, and came in. And she said, I know this probably isn't your job, but do you know where I could see any burlesque shows tonight? And I said, that's actually hilarious that you asked me that, because I shoot burlesque performers all the time and happen to know of like 3 shows going on tonight alone. Nice. And so we exchanged information, and that school ended up hiring me to shoot photos of them. So I was able to fly out there and stay with her and shoot photos of the burlesque school. And Chicago
is really fun too. It's so fun.
Chicago
you can go really high up, or you can go really far down. So find the fun.
I loved Chicago. I love everything about Chicago. It's a great city.
I have to take an empty suitcase when I go there.
Because there's just so many things. Yeah.
There's I can't even remember the name of the store, but it's in Boys Town part of Chicago. And people who live in Chicago and go, what's Boys Town? I'm like, bitch, I'm taking you shopping. But there's a vintage store, and also they have makeup, and there are usually drag queens in there that help you pick out makeup.
Oh, that's what's
try on clothes, and I'm like, this is the best store ever. So that's my empty suitcase store.
Yeah. The Chicago's great, and that's something else that's, traveling. That's something that gives me anxiety, but also once it's there, I'm so stoked to be doing it. It's just one of those things that you're comfortable where you are, and you're like, oh God, what if I leave and everything crumbles? It's exactly. My anxiety just speaking in my head. And once I went and did it, I was like, this is great. I could travel all the time. This would be fine.
Yeah.
So that's another thing that I feel like I've overcome in recent years is like, okay, I can travel. I can do this job,
I understand that sense of almost agoraphobia when you're like, oh yeah, I really want to do this. And you're excited, you're booking. And then all of a sudden, like the time gets closer and you're like, I don't know.
Yeah. It gets closer and you're like, can I really do this? And imposter syndrome is real also, where you feel like you're not, you're what you are, but then all of a sudden you start feeling like you can't do it, or you're an imposter. You're not, like a lot of times,
you're not on that level yet.
Yeah. And there are days where it's like, I'm a shit photographer. These are the things that the negative thoughts that are in my head, you'll never be good enough. You're never going to get anywhere. You've been striving so long and you haven't gotten where you needed to go, and you should give up. And these are the things that, on a bad day, those are things that I hear. And those thoughts, just the only way to get rid of that is to push yourself to do better. And so I push myself to do something even better than last time, because I'm like, no, I'm going to fight this. I'm going to be better. I am a photographer. I can do this, and just being able to say, I'm a photographer. It took me a while to get to that point, because I would say,
to own it.
I would say, oh, I work at this, and I also do photography.
Yeah, I do photography now. Like
I am a photographer. I would say I do photography, but I would also talk about a job first. Like I would say, oh yeah, I sell tours in the quarter, and I also do photography, or I'm also.
Interesting.
And it took me a long time to be able to say, when people ask me what I do first, I say I'm a photographer first. And I don't know why it took me. I wasn't confident enough in myself and my abilities to be able to say I'm a photographer.
I get that. Yeah, totally. And I was going to ask you, well, how do you push through that? But it sounds like you do positive affirmations.
Right.
And focus on the goal.
Right. I normally put on like Cash Money albums or like some kind of like money. Old New Orleans rap album. And then I feel better.
So music
that automatically gets me better. No, but normally, yeah, I push myself to do something better than I've done. Like I'm like, okay, well, that last photo shoot was good, but what if you did this time? You know, what if you used this color and you did this and that's what I try to focus on instead of the negativity that's in my head.
Right.
You know?
And it's like, no matter how really wrong those negative thoughts are, it's just, you can't stop them sometimes.
No, you can't.
You, but
no, you absolutely cannot. I mean, that's the downfall of anxiety is that you want to, that what you're thinking isn't logical. You know that, but it doesn't feel not logical because that's all you can focus on in that moment.
Absolutely. And sometimes it's really paralyzing for me.
Yeah. Oh, and
like, I'm not getting out of bed today. Just send me cookies.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I'm a cannabis, activist. I'm like all for legalization because I think that would help so many people in ways that they don't even realize yet because it's been so stigmatized over the years, and it's been so you're a criminal criminalized if you're smoking weed or eating an edible or whatever it is that you're doing. And another thing, going to places where it is legal, like going to LA and seeing the difference in so many things, and realizing that our state could be so much more successful if we just legalized it and taxed it and was able to make it decriminalized even more than it already is in our city. And I think that would help so many people that are addicted to benzos, so many people that are addicted to pain medication. And I mean, things that people are prescribing them, the first thing the doctors want to do is write you a prescription for something. Not all doctors, of course, but a lot of doctors, the first thing they want to do is write you a script and get you addicted to something. And not even intentionally, but money-wise, from that. No, and it's all about money. And when it comes down to it, we could be using that tax money to build schools and
fund the arts,
fund so many things, education first and foremost, because our city really grapples with that. And I feel like that would be such a big thing, such a huge thing for people that do have anxiety and depression, to be able to do that without fear of going to jail or
being judged
or just being judged or I mean, any of that. I think that it definitely needs to be talked about more and more normalized, and not just something that people say in hushed tones to each other, like, and it's like we should be more open about the benefits and really a natural way of helping people.
I agree. And I was diagnosed in sobriety when I was sober. I was diagnosed with borderline personality disorder, and I was like, holy shit, there's a name for my issues.
Right. But putting a face to it sometimes is wild when you're like, oh, that's me.
Or like, so then if they know what it is, then there's a plan. But, and I've tried several different medications over the years, and I didn't like how it felt. And really, there is no medication for borderline. Sometimes some things will give you a boost or help you a little bit, but it made me feel like there was a wall between
and that's the thing. But before I started using cannabis, I was taking Klonopins like candy. Because it was
legal.
It was It was easier it's legal, first of all. There's no repercussions. But no legal repercussions, but the negative repercussions were how I was feeling on those things. And I would feel like a zombie. I would feel dead. I would feel drained. I would feel all those things. And that's not at all how I feel when I use cannabis. So I don't understand why it's something that's still, you know, it's a natural thing, grows out of the ground.
Right.
It's crazy that a plant that they're like, hey, that's a plant. You can't have that plant. Like,
right. But you can have this fermented thing over here that causes drunk accidents.
Right. Or please take this, you know, chemical that we created in a lab that's, you know, gonna in the long term get you addicted and make you a zombie. Like those things aren't good either. So, you know, that's something that I definitely think, as far as mental health goes, needs to be addressed in many different states and in the United States in general.
Oh, I agree, totally. And sometimes, you know, well, there have been a number of years, like almost 11 years that I didn't smoke pot. And then I was going through a lot of grief and I tried medication. Within 6 months' time, I created some situations, and there were some situations. I lost 3 pets and my grandmother. I got married and I moved. Like, that's a lot of shit within 6 months.
Oh yeah, that's definitely a lot.
And I was like, you know, I remember feeling really chill when I smoked weed.
I remember a different person. Yes.
Yeah, let's try that. And it did help for a while. And of course, because I hadn't done it so long, I was like, and I was so stressed. I did way too much in the beginning. Yeah. I did too many pots. And
you smoked too many pots.
So I had to learn to balance it out. And like, if I want to be functional or do math, I don't smoke weed.
Right.
That's just for me. I don't function. Right. I'm not high functioning.
Well, and it's not it doesn't. It's not a cure-all for everything. It's definitely not something that, you know, is going to be the miracle that fixes everything. But I think that it's definitely something that needs to be looked at and addressed by legislature everywhere, because it's not fair to make people suffer and give them medication that is not good for them in the long run, when there's something that they could be naturally taking that the government's like, no.
Yeah.
It's on par with heroin. Like, what?
No.
That's not, I don't think that's how that works. But
I don't know.
That's
high people haven't broken into my house. High
on marijuana.
Yeah, high on marijuana. But, you know, heroin people have. Heroin people. You know,
people addicted to heroin. Yes. No, and I mean, that's an epidemic here also.
Yeah.
And I don't think that would be worsened by the legalization of pot. I don't.
Right.
I just don't. I think that's
pot just
a false
makes you
narrative.
Sit at home and eat cookies and
makes you happy and giggle. And if you can drink some wine and beer, if you can drink these things and, you know, drink a shot and that's legal, I don't see why you can't smoke a joint and that can't be legal. That doesn't make any sense to me.
It doesn't either. And, you know, pot's not for everybody.
And I've had doctors literally tell me, I would rather you smoke weed than take a benzo or than drink.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. I have PTSD, and it's definitely been advised, you know, don't drink, because all that shit comes up when you're drinking, and that's for me.
And drinking does a lot more harm to your body than marijuana does over the long term, especially if you become addicted to it and become an alcoholic or something like that. I mean, that can give you. I mean, you can die. I mean, literally.
Oh yeah.
I've
seen it.
Yeah. Nobody's ever died from smoking too much weed.
Yeah, I don't know.
You just go to sleep.
Just don't fall asleep in the wrong place. That's all.
Right. I mean, maybe inadvertently, like, you know, you smoked a bunch of weed and then laid down on train tracks or something. I don't know.
That was my visual too.
Really? That's great.
Don't sleep on the train tracks.
Don't fall asleep on train tracks. Don't get so high that you fall asleep on train tracks.
Our DCR live chat is in effect, and I just wanted to do a little correction on who's been taking photos of me recently. It is Nadia Borsch, and she's been doing a great job. She's just getting back into photography, and that is actually helping her and the people she's photographing as well. And I hope to get a future photo session
interview
from
interview
from Nadia, but also future photo shoots.
We're definitely gonna do a shoot.
I love working with photographers that are energetic and what do I want to say? They give you better self-esteem just by talking to them, or good energy.
Or good energy.
Yeah.
Well, and that's the thing. If somebody, I've felt that like energy with a photographer before as a model, and a negative, more of negative energy, and the shoot's not
so
gonna
weird.
Yeah, because you don't feel comfortable to be yourself. You don't feel comfortable to let loose and kind of let your guard down. So you're guarded and you look tight in the pictures. You look stiff, and you don't look as natural as you would as if you were comfortable with someone. So I do definitely try to, talk to the person beforehand, and like, even if it's just for a couple minutes before we start shooting, so that they get my vibe and they know I'm not gonna, be a threat or tell them, or be weird or whatever it may be, or be negative. I try to just no negative talk about yourself during the shoot too. I try, but some people are determined to be mean to themselves, and it's not things that they would tell me, but it's things that they would tell themselves. And that's the other thing. We're hardest critic on ourselves, so they're so hard on themselves. And I try to tell them, you would never tell me you look fat and ugly, so don't stop saying that about yourself.
Exactly. Like, how would you talk to your best friend?
I was like, I'm fat and fabulous, so please don't tell me that you're fat and ugly, because
hashtag fat and fabulous.
I am, and I know that. I'm aware, so I'm like, please don't tell me that like fat is bad. Yeah. Like, even if that's not what you're saying, I look fat, but by saying that to someone who is fat when you're not fat,
I get that,
is like, but you're not, and also, is that really a bad thing? Like, there's different strokes for different folks. You know what I mean? The grass is always greener, like we were saying. So I don't know if that's necessarily a bad thing. Like, if the worst thing people can say about me is, wow, she's fat, then like,
that is not what I.
Here it is. Like,
that's not what I think when I see you. When I see you, and not to make you.
Thank you. No, thank you.
I see you like, oh my God, she's so colorful and bright, and I love how she did her makeup. Like, and nearly every time I see you, I'm like, how'd you do that with your eyeshadow? You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, and I mean,
I love your outfit.
Thank you, and but yeah, I try not to let people be so negative on themselves, because I'm guilty of it also.
Oh, of course.
Of course I tell people all the time, like, oh, don't be so negative on yourself, and I go home and go plucking my eyebrows, or like whatever it may be, like, just like, why are you so like this? Like, this is terrible. Or looking at myself in the mirror and doing a pose and being like, no, that's not right. Like, this is better, and oh God, you need to work on this. And we're our own worst critic for sure.
I had to quit a job. Actually, there was one time that I called in to this job because I was having a panic attack. I had lost some more weight, and when I like raised my arms like this during dancing, you could see like extra skin and stuff like that in my breasts. And there's this whole this hashtag saggy boobs matter movement, and like, as much as that's great, like, I was still thinking like, oh, I can't. In your head. I couldn't do this and I couldn't do that, and it's really exhausting to think about when you're trying to focus on your art. And so I had a panic attack, and I just had to call in. And then, like, eventually, I think a month or two later, I had to quit. I was like, I can't. I'm exhausted.
Yeah. And I mean, you definitely need to be able to get out of your head for a minute and focus on the overall picture, which is, this body is not who we are. You know what I mean? Like, this is just a shell for who we are inside. And I don't mean to like be morbid, but when you look at like a dead body, or you look at someone who has died, something's not there. There's something missing, and that energy is who we really are. And I feel like that is what I try to capture in people, and not so much body is irrelevant. You know what I mean? When it comes down to it, it's really who you are, because after you're gone, people aren't going to say like, wow, she had banging tits. You know what I mean? Like, nobody's going to be, they may at the funeral say she had some banging tits, but they're going to say, wow, she was a great person who always made me feel comfortable and always made me laugh. And, I would rather people say that, you know what I mean? Like, that's nobody talks about what you looked like after you're gone. They talk about who you were. and how you made them feel.
Exactly.
And that's what I feel like is what's more important. And I try to keep that in my head, is like, this is just a shell. It's not, you can always change this. You can always change it. It's not,
absolutely,
it's not set, you know?
And I was thinking that too yesterday, and I think this a lot sometimes because my husband and I have been working out, and I thought he was gorgeous before, and he's, you know, he's still gorgeous, but our bodies are changing and we're loving the results in each other and ourselves. And I look at him and I think, wow, do I deserve this? But the thing is, I didn't fall in love with it. Yeah. And I was like, yeah, I do, because he's next to me, and that's the affirmation that I do deserve this.
Right.
This hunky, sexy dude.
Yeah.
But also, that's not really what made me fall in love with him.
And that's not why you love him. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
if that was
not
gone tomorrow, you would still love him the same.
Exactly.
So that's really what it comes down to. We're so hard on ourselves about our bodies because of what society has placed on us and what we're supposed to look like and all these things. But when it comes down to it, like, that's not who we are.
Yeah. And you can look at celebrities and see, like, somebody is obviously attracted to a wider audience than their spouse maybe, and you're like, how did they get that? And that is so not.
It's right. It
what
really,
we're attracted to at the core, you know.
Right.
Maybe initially it's like, oh damn.
Oh damn, yeah. Well, when it comes down to it, you spend more than 30 minutes with somebody who has a shit personality and a banging body, and you're like,
I'm out.
Yeah, see you later. I'm out. I mean,
Exactly.
you can have the most banging body in the world, but that's not going to keep somebody around for years and years and years. You know what I mean? Like, especially if you're living with somebody, or you know what I mean? Like, you have to be comfortable with that person and love that person for who they are, and not just what they look like, or else it's not going to last very long in my experience.
True. It's super true. And I've had to, focus on that more than anything. Like, no matter if I'm distracted by my body and what's going on with it, but like, focus on exercising this thing and making this better every day.
Definitely.
Sometimes that's harder than others, but
definitely. Some days are definitely more harder than others when it comes to self thoughts, like the self-image and things like that. Sometimes I'm like, I woke up today and was like, you're looking like a summertime snack, girl. But then other days I wake up and I'm like, I'm gonna stay in bed today.
You know what's weird too? What I love about photography is when I've had somebody take my photograph, and like you said, your mom has like a whole bin of photographs of you.
Yes.
And so does my mom. And I remember different times in my life when my mom was photographing me or anybody, and I'd be like, oh, I don't like this about my body, or I don't feel good, or I look tired, whatever. And then I look back at that photograph and I'm like, bitch, what were you fussing about?
Well, and that's the other thing. A lot of times, and it can be jarring at first if you've never done a photo shoot and then we do a photo shoot and I show you the photos, it can be jarring to see your body on like that from a different perspective, because we don't see it like that ever. We're just looking at a reverse image in a mirror and that's it. We're not seeing it how other people see us.
Right.
So when you're seeing yourself from a different perspective, it can be really jarring. And I encourage people to look at the photos and then give it a little bit, like let it rest a couple days, and then go back and look at them again and see if you feel differently about yourself. Because a lot of times you can go back a couple days later and go, wow, it's actually not that bad. Some days, you can look at a photo and say, oh, I don't like this. And then you go back and you're like you said, and you're like, it wasn't that bad actually.
Yeah. Or you can just be in that wrong frame of mind.
Oh yeah,
you're not accepting.
You're not
anything.
Yeah.
So fuck it.
Yeah.
And also, sometimes, like what I think you've been doing for people and what you strive to do, it has happened to me where somebody photographs me. Like, I've been working out lately, and somebody photographed me, Nadia Borch actually. And I looked at the photograph and I'm like, man, your lighting makes me look like I have muscles. This is amazing. She was like, those are your muscles.
Yeah.
I was like, really?
Oh yeah. A lot of times.
I don't see it.
Well, my favorite thing is when people go, wow, you have a really good camera. And I go, well, I taught it everything it knows. But like, but a lot of times people look at the photos and they'll be like, wow, it must be this, this, and this. It can't possibly be because I actually look good.
Oh yeah.
It's got to be the lighting. It's got to be because you're really good at photography or your camera's really good. And I'm like, that's what you look like. Like
the camera don't lie.
Right.
Well, thank you so much for the interview.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you. This was fun.
It was super good to know some more stuff about the person that I work with selling glitter. Speaking of glitter, there is Electra Cosmetics has this new shiny ass eco glitter. It's eco-friendly. It's made of corn. So if you get in the pool or the ocean, this is the glitter you should be wearing. And there are 10 colors. Yes.
It's water soluble, plant-based, all good,
Yes.
vegan.
Vegan too, in case you want to eat it. So and
Delicious.
what I have learned lately is that if there's a part of your body you don't love, just slather some glitter on
Cover it in glitter.
Right? Love it with glitter.
And there's also holographic colors in here too.
Oh, yeah,
I know people were
platinum
concerned
AB.
that they would not have holographic colors with the eco glitter, but we got a platinum AB, stands for Aurora Borealis.
Yes.
And it's really popping. I know this is can't really see the rainbow effect, but man, it really is popping in person.
Yeah.
I'll take my word on it.
And I have some of this. I don't know if you can see, but I have some of this golden and green moss on my face and a little bit of brass AB. Bing, bling, bling. Ding. Thank you so much. This is Tiffany Bailey with Lush Boudoir.
Follow me on Instagram. It's at Lush Boudoir on Instagram, LushBoudoir.
Yeah. Any other thing you want to plug before?
Oh, yes. We are having hosting an all women's photo workshop on September 6th. And it is going to be, if you ever wanted to learn how to pose, we're going to have 2 separate photographers, me and Shelby Arsu, who's an amazing photographer. Can't say enough good things about her work. And we're going to have Miki Mensa, professional model. She's going to be helping pose and helping you assisting the photographers and coaching. We're going to have glitter and headdress available. We're going to have Electra glitter, and we're going to have Herte headwear doing headdresses. So if you want to wear those for the shoot, you can. And we're also going to have my makeup artist from Minnesota, one of my favorites, Angela Morris, is flying down to do makeup and hair. And then one more thing, we have Unlucky Lingerie, which is an amazing lingerie company. They're going to be donating some pieces so that you can wear those in the shoot too if you want to. So for pricing, booking info, we still have slots available for that. Just email allwomensphotoworkshop@gmail.com.
That's really exciting.
Yeah, I'm stoked about it. It's going to be really fun. Yeah. Hey, here I am. check me out.
Oh, well, you even got like a nice Jessica Rabbit voice going on. So that could be your new career, cartoon sexy voices.
Oh, man. I'd get a lot of furries probably.
Oh, that's
a rough
another
one,
episode.
Yeah, that's on the next episode. We discuss furries.
Bye.
Bye.
Sweet. Thank you.
Yeah, that was great. We did good.
I don't know who the 7 foot. I wish we had been able to go to Tiki